Well, hey, book lovers, welcome back to another of our live broadcast book readings. I am so excited because today we're actually talking all about my Hansel and Gretel retelling called Sugarcoated. We're going to take a look behind the scenes at what happens when Hansel and Gretel's witch is actually working with them to assassinate the Mad King, and their plot, unfortunately, goes a little astray. This is going to be an intense read for you, friends. And today we're going to be taking a look at the first part of Sugarcoated. But before we dive in, let's go ahead and let's actually read the blurb so you know what we're talking about. Hansel and Gretel's witch was actually on their side. Annika's job is to create a cake to match the candy-colored rooftops, nightly fireworks shows, and daily parades, ending in unexpected executions for the Mad King's ball. But her true mission is to sneak a 13-year-old assassin into the palace inside her cake using her gift of illusions. Hansel's job is to protect his little sister Gretel once she assassinates King Levin and ends the destruction in Candestrachen, using his power over light to rescue the young girl from the chaos her influence over life and death will create. When the entire forest reconstructs itself under Gretel's command while she's trying to save herself from a king's guard, Hansel and Annika must put their feelings aside and ensure their plan holds true, even if it means one of them has to sacrifice themselves to protect the mission. Her illusions were meant to save her, but not everyone will survive the assassination attempt. So, I am excited for this one. We are going to dive in and we are going to get started, and I'm going to go ahead and I am going to put this baby up on screen so you guys can follow along with me. Now, I'm going to be using my blue light blocking glasses so that I don't burn my eyes out as I'm reading this because it's going to take a minute, but we're going to dive in and we are going to read the very first part of Sugarcoated. So let me go ahead and move this where I need it to be on my screen, and let's do this. Chapter 1. Ooh, I'm going to grab some water real fast. Okay, try it again. Chapter 1. Sweets give us the illusion of happiness, beckoning us to sample brightly colored sugar treats and revel in their sweetness, until they destroy us from the inside out and make our worlds crumble. Your brother will be here soon, I remind the small girl. You need to get into position before he arrives. Annika, really? Can't we just wait until we see him coming? She heaves a sigh as she traipses back over to the container. The blonde girl lifts her foot, nearly tangling herself in her skirt. You need to get used to it if you're going to help the cause, Gretel. You'll be in there for a long time. I almost hope my words might convince her to walk away from this mission. Killing the king is no place for a little girl. The other half of me knows that she is our only chance at ending this. You sound like my brother, she grumbles. Yes, and you look like him, I snip at her, grinning. Now, in. Gretel drops down into the barrel that used to contain flour, her blonde braids dipping below the rim. I set the lid on, leaving just enough space so air can float in and out. If there's time, I'll inch the lid over before Hansel comes to collect her. I walk gently over to the window, lecturing Gretel on the importance of controlling her breathing in small spaces while I keep an eye out for her brother. Just like every other day for the past 3 months, he should be arriving at any moment from the woods after work. Right on cue, he saunters down the path, pack over his shoulder. I duck behind the curtain before he has a chance to notice me. Scurrying over to where Gretel is, hiding in the barrel by the fireplace, I bump the lid. Showtime, I whisper to myself. Lifting my hand, I brush back a piece of my hair. In my peripheral vision, I notice a bit of flour on my hand from the barrel. I imagine Gretel will come out white as a ghost. We'll have to clean her off before she leaves so we aren't discovered. Annika, Hansel regards me as the door swings open. His tall frame fills the doorway, and I feel myself blush as he smiles. Is Gretel ready? You can take her home if you can find her, I reply, turning away from him. I busy myself kneading bread. Hansel sighs heavily, dropping the bag on the ground by the table leg. I glance down as I work, but don't comment. I know he's intentionally going to leave the delivery here for me so I can work on our project this evening. He walks around the room, quizzically appraising everything as he searches for his younger sister's hiding spot. Hansel crosses his arms over his chest, grabbing his elbows as his free hand migrates toward his chin. Well, she's obviously not in the fireplace, he muses. His footsteps are heavy and intentional. And I know you didn't move the fireplace. I measured after last time. She's not in the loft. You hid her under the floorboards yesterday, so I'm guessing you wouldn't repeat that. Hansel steps closer to me before reaching up to flick a long strand of my bangs back, smirking. I consider making it look like the fireplace has moved a foot while he's busy staring at me, but I don't. I can't help but notice the flower in your hair, Mistress Baker. Might that be a clue? His nose is an inch away from my ear, and I shudder as his breath ripples against my skin. Blinking, I try to keep my composure. A clue that I run a bakery? Why, yes! However did you guess? My words are sickly sweet. His eyes spark with laughter. "Where is she, Annika?" he whispers quietly. "You can come out, Gretel," I call, refusing to give him her location. The lid scrapes off the barrel. Hansel turns back toward the fireplace, dropping the strand of my hair he was twisting around his finger. His face lights up when Gretel appears. "Well," he draws, "there she is. Not bad, little sister. I never would have guessed." "Not until you tried to move the barrel," I add. "Oh, I don't know about that. Gretel's as heavy as a barrel of flour now." He offers his sister a hand as she smacks at him for his joke. At 13, Gretel is the Resistance's best weapon. "You realize I have to take her home, right?" Hansel teases. "I can't take her out of here looking like she just lost a fight with Winter." He bends down and starts brushing the flour off Gretel's dress. The barrel was mostly empty, but everywhere Gretel brushed against the sides of it, traces of the white fluff adhered itself to her clothing. I could create the illusion of her being clean and save some time, but it would only last until they got halfway home. "See you tomorrow," Gretel says, waving as her brother herds her out of the door. "See you tomorrow, Annika," Hansel adds in a deep voice. He tosses a look back at me, and I know it won't be long before he returns for his bag. Once they're gone, I scoop it up and paw through the contents. Hansel doesn't mind me going through his things, but somehow I always feel a little wrong, despite the fact that he's hidden pieces of our device inside his belongings for me. I come up with an apple in my hand, a small ribbon tied around the stem. I try to bite back my grin, but he's not here to see me, so I allow myself the small moment as I twist his gift in my fingers. Hansel and I have worked together for years, but our mission is too important to let our feelings get in the way of what we need to accomplish. Still, the last few weeks, Hansel hasn't seemed to care. I told him it was a bad idea last week when he kissed me. That hasn't stopped us from kissing again since. It's reckless, but I've always felt Hansel was meant for me. "Not bad," I murmur, holding the hinge up to the light when I find it in his bag. It would fit perfectly inside of the compartment. I set to work installing it before night falls, and it becomes harder to see. A few hours go by before I hear Hansel knock. I set down the tools I'm using and walk to the door. Somehow this is easier when he walks in to pick up Gretel. The formality of knocking sets me on edge. His grin does not. "Did it work?" he asks, stepping into the shadows of the room. He scoops me into his arms, and I drop the hand I had poised to cast an illusion over the room to protect my work had it not been Hansel at the door. The moon is partially in the sky, though twilight still glitters above us. "Seems like it." I motion toward the tall outline of a tiered cake. Hansel's arms drag around me as he steps toward the fake pastry. "Your father would be so proud, Annika." He tosses a look back at me. His muscles flex as he steps around the mobile hiding place I wheeled out of the back room to work on. "I know you never wanted to follow in his footsteps, but God himself had a plan to put you here in our time of need." Hansel strides back over to me, wrapping his arms around my waist once again. "The resistance would be lost without you, Annika. No one else has been able to get us this close to the king." The fate of our country somehow rests on two 18-year-olds and a 13-year-old assassin. Outside, the fireworks explode in the sky with streaks of white. It illuminates the rooftops in the distance, and round and sloping in candy-colored stripes. Walls glitter with the burst of light. "Right on time," Hansel mumbles, leaning in to press his lips against mine. "This joke is getting old, Hansel," I mumble, silently willing him not to stop kissing me. My breath catches as he pulls back. "You would prefer I talk business during the display?" His smirk casts deep shadows over his face as the sky lights up again. "I didn't say that," I mumble, his lips roaming over mine as his hand tangles in my hair. Brown locks slip from the loose bun on top of my head. The tangy scent of apple hovers between us from the present he left me earlier, lingering on my lips as he separates them. All around us, candles glow brighter, intensifying as Hansel pushes me backward toward the table. I bump into it, dropping to sit on the workspace as I drag him down with me. Hansel pulls back to grin, light dancing over his face as it grows even more golden. His hand reaches behind me, steadying himself as he leans back down to kiss me. "You should learn to control that," I tease. "You make me light up. What can I say, Annika?" His voice is low and dangerous enough to make that my stomach twists up. The lights only do what I tell them to do. Fireworks crackle outside of the city, casting a white glow over us for a moment, mixing with the golden gleam of the candles burning brightly enough to be a raging wildfire. "And do you think letting the king's guards know we're here is a good idea? They can probably see us from the city, and city the way this place looks like it's ablaze. Hansel's eyes crackle and spark like the flames around us, but he lowers his eyelids, forcing himself to consider my words. Fine, he sighs, dousing the lights until only two glow dimly off to the side. Happy now, Mistress Baker? I was happier when he was kissing me, but I refused to say it out loud. I'm happy that I don't have to whip up an illusion to keep the guards from noticing us, I pretend to chide, ducking under his arm as I slide away from the table. Annika, he calls quietly. A candle near me bursts. I turn as he illuminates the fireplace again, the last of the fireworks fading in the sky outside the window. I wander back over to him, but hover just out of reach. Glancing up, I create a crystal chandelier above us. It picks up the firelight and glitters around the room. And here I thought I was going to be the one to get us caught, he smirks, revealing deep dimples in his cheeks. Well, I need something pretty to inspire me now that I can start working on the cake again. It's a good thing that hinge fits, Hansel. I know, but we have it now, and we can move forward with our plans. He reaches forward and carefully wraps an arm around my waist as he turns me toward where I've hidden the wooden cake for him. Is she ready? I ask, waving my hand to unveil the cake. The cloak drops from around it like a sheet, the illusion wall disappearing before our eyes to reveal the cake. I hope so, Hansel whispers. You'd know more than me. One more reason we'd be lost without you. Hansel, are you ready? I ask cautiously. We've been preparing for this for what seems like an entire lifetime, but now that the time is drawing near, we are all a little terrified of what could go wrong. I'll save her, he whispers quietly, but his grimace is a silent admission that he's scared of what might happen. You will, I whisper back, wrapping my hand around his arm. Sometimes he still flinches when I touch him, as if he's not expecting me to be so familiar with him, but he looks down to me, soft smile on his lips, and lowers his face to me. She'll be all right, he says after a moment. She's got both of us. We'll make sure she's safe. You'll pull her back, Hansel, I assure him. We'll all make it through. An explosion ripples outside. The entire house shakes under the weight of the blast. If the chandelier I created had been real, the glass would have clinked together and fallen to the floor, smashing into a million pieces. Instead, it's the only thing that doesn't move. What in the name of the king's court? Hansel races toward the window, ground still trembling. What do you see? I asked, pausing just long enough to cover the room in an illusion to conceal our secret. By the time I reach the window, smoke fills the air, dancing in the night. Hansel douses the lights so that we can see outside without interference. My hand feels cold as I place it along the windowsill. The king must have had an enemy in our sister town, but instead of dealing with it discreetly like he usually does, he took down what I estimate to be half the tiny town. Thankfully, it's in the opposite direction that Hansel and Gretel's home is in, though I'm sure if they blew something up, the guards will also be making rounds to look for others to destroy. How fast can you finish that cake, Annika? Hansel's voice is dark. If he's willing to speed up the timeline like this, it must be worse than I think. What do you know about this, Hansel? What did you see today? Hansel spends his days traveling for work and has his ear to the ground more than any of us. Nothing happens in this country that he doesn't have a way of learning about. If it's who I think it is, it's not one of ours. My eyes close in relief. I'm horrified that someone has died tonight, but at least it's not one of our own. Hansel opens his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. Gretel. He pauses, jaw still open for the briefest of moments before he closes it and nods. Hansel pulls me close, kissing me hard. Stay safe. His voice echoes in my head as he rushes to the door. Once outside, he spins and looks at me, demanding I cast an illusion. Shaking my head to pull myself from the fog, I arch my hand, transforming the bakery into a run-down old building. The lights go out on the outside, leaving nothing but a shadowy old house that's about to fall apart. Only the window remains for him to see me. Hansel nods, approving of my choice. Quickly, he ducks his head and turns away, running from the bakery toward Leipzig, where he left Gretel in the care of his great aunt. I wave my hand again, concealing the window from the outside. Inside, I throw a string of lights around the room, casting a white glow over my workspace. I tear down the illusion wall and reveal the cake form again so I can work. I won't be sleeping tonight. The king must die, and my chandelier-lit handiwork will be the Trojan horse that leads to the death at the hands of a 13-year-old girl that acts as a guardian of life and death. Hansel casts a worried look at me as he drops off Gretel the next morning. She rushes in, clearly having slept through the explosion, though she was farther away and it might not have had made an impact in Leapton, and dances around the room. As soon as Hansel is down the drive, Gretel drops her act. "What happens?" she demands, taking me by surprise. "He didn't tell me, but it can't be good." "An explosion," I answer. "That's as much as I know. I'm sure he'll learn more about it today." "We need to move the timeline," she replies. Her jaw twitches with nerves, something I've seen repeatedly over our time together. "We can't exactly convince the king to change his party, Gretel," I remind her. "He's already sent word on what he wants for his cake. In a week, we'll deliver the one that we made for you instead. We have to be patient, darling." "A week and 2 days," Gretel murmurs, brushing back her long hair. Of course she would know the exact countdown. It is the day she might die as well. She drops her hand quickly, face hardening. "Can't we force his hand?" "For a ball?" I scoff. "No, our plan is a good one, but we can't even suggest he move up his party or he will know something is wrong." I just want to get this over with. She's frustrated and I can't blame her. "We'll get you out of there, Gretel." My words are soft as I try to soothe her fears. "Hansel won't let anything bad happen to you." "I'm killing the king of Candestrachen." She looks at me incredulously. "I'll do what I must." Gretel has always been willing to sacrifice herself for the cause. Better to give up a few lives and save the masses than to watch us all perish at the hands of a corrupt, unpredictable king. But Hansel and I are willing to do what we must to keep her alive. Besides, we might need her again for the next man who rises to power. They won't even know it's you, Gretel, I promise. You'll look like someone entirely different. Yeah, close enough. If you can get in the door, she reminds me. If you can get in the door, she reminds me. Turning, she makes her way to the cake form. "I have to bring the cake in. I'll find a way to be in the room, Gretel. I won't let you down. Once it's over, Hansel will pull you back and get you out of there. His lightness and my darkness," she muses. "You have life and death, Gretel." I walk up behind her and take her long mane in my hair. Braiding it quietly, I add, "Hansel has light. He will pull you back from the darkness when you destroy King Levin. I know you don't like using death, but we're all grateful to you, Gretel." She's quiet for a long time. I would be terrified if I were in her position. Entering the palace in a Trojan cake with the intent of killing the Mad King? If anything goes off plan, even in the slightest, there's no telling what the crown might do to a 13-year-old assassin. "Will you at least give me brown hair like yours and make me look older?" She places her request for an illusion to change her appearance while in the palace. "Would you like my face too, Gretel?" I laugh. "No, but only because they'd come after you afterward." She turns and the braid falls from my hand. "What's wrong with your hair, my little darling?" I prompt, hands on my hip. A smirk tugs at my lip, and I try to hold it back. "Nothing," she remarks, curving around me to walk along the wall toward the window. The girl touches a plant sitting there, and it springs to life, bursting with flowers. "I just like yours better. Besides, if I'm going to look different, I should look very different." "Fine, brunette it is. Now, do you intend on helping today, or are you planning on frolicking around the bakery all day growing things?" She turns to see what else she can sprout with her touch in the cool fall weather. Before she can notice, I create a few vines as an illusion a few feet away. Gretel moves to touch them, but she can't make them grow. I flick my fingers to my side, changing the position of the vines. My charge turns around to glare at me. Very funny. I try. I don't bother hiding my grin this time. "You and Hansel were made for each other," Gretel rolls her eyes. She doesn't know about us yet, but if we survive the assassination, we'll have to tell her. "Well, what do you expect, little bird? We were raised by our fathers. They were practically like brothers, so of course we had the same training." "Yes, that's what I meant." She mumbles so low I almost miss it. Perhaps she does have an idea of what's going on without her. "Come along, Gretel. I've had enough of waiting around for answers. We're going to town for supplies." Hansel will be furious. That doesn't stop her. She grabs her cloak from the rack by the door and wraps it around her shoulders. Bright pink tones make her hair pop, and her eyes sparkle as she looks back at me. I wrap a brilliant blue and lavender shawl around my shoulders, the long center corner hanging down my back. The tassels tickle against my arm, but no matter what walk of life you are from, in the towns of Candestrachen, the women are meant to be seen in bright colors and ornate clothing. My long skirt bounces around my ankles as I walk. It's a muted gray color, one that would be entirely unacceptable in town under normal circumstances, but it's the best for baking in. When we finish walking through the woods, I'll use an illusion and make myself more presentable. Gretel flicks her wrist and brings a blueberry bush back to life, fruit springing out of its branches. She pauses long enough to gather a handful of berries and pats the bush as if it were a dog. Holding out her hand, she offers me some. I indulge, but only a few so she can have the rest. Gretel is about to save us all. She should have whatever her heart desires in the coming days. Music swells up in the distance. Gretel sighs, displeased with the display we're too far away to see. When we reach the edge of the tree line, I transform my dress into a brilliant gown that matches the cotton candy colors of the center of the town of Leipzig. We round the corner and reach the true spectacle. King Levin doesn't like for his people to work where he can see them. Anyone trapped inside of the city center is forced to create a spectacle for the king and his guests to see, as if the entire country were one big festival. People like Hansel and I, who live outside of the town's limits, were given permission to work, but the poor souls inside still had to provide for their families without any source of income. We help them however we can, but it's still not enough. Young men sometimes sneak out to live with relatives in the woods, while the women stay behind to cover for them, using their flashy dresses to catch the noblemen's eyes in the streets as they bustle about, pretending to be happy. When Hansel and the others find the ones that escaped, they put them to work, giving them a place to belong and a way to help their families back in the towns. Gretel falls behind me just slightly, her now vibrant dress bouncing with each step. She stays behind my elbow as she follows me through the streets. "Good morning, Annika," a voice calls. A friendly hand waves as the gentleman pushes a cart through town. I wave back, offering a smile. I make my way to the miller's shop to order more flour. While I have enough to last through the assassination attempt, I need to make it look like business as usual. The miller's shop is far enough away from the flour mill that I imagine it's difficult for Bauer to run his job, much less help lead the resistance. The building looms over us, looking down on two young women making their way through the streets of Leipzig. Each tower on every building is striped with a different color, winding its way around to the pointed precipice of the roofs. Bold magenta and orange tones dot this section of town, mixed with bright whites like a twisted mint. Perhaps it's unfair of me to compare everything here to a candy world, but when one's entire life revolves around baking and creating confectionery delights for royals and peasants alike, one has little else to compare the bright world to. We pass a row of brightly designed fireworks meant for later this evening. I secretly wish Gretel's power extended to turning inanimate objects into duds so we could have one night of peace in the skies. Turning, I allow my hand to scrape over the embossed edges of the building at the start of the street. Each groove is familiar beneath my hands. From the corner of my eye, I see Gretel do the same. A group of young girls run by us, clad in bright yellows and blues. They spin, laughing as they run down the street. Their mothers have taught them to have fun with the king's little games, but when they're older, they'll learn the truth of their prison. A bell dings above me as I guide my charge into the miller's shop. Bauer looks up from his place behind the counter. A streak of flour runs across one side of his forehead. "Ah, young Miss Annika and her apprentice," he regards us. "What can I help you ladies with today?" "The king is coming," someone shouts outside. Bauer tosses me a worried glance, but hurries around the corner on his bad leg. Gretel and I pick up our skirts and step out of the door before the miller. I can't let the crown see our secret child weapon. So there you go. That is the very first chapter of Sugarcoated. I am such a huge fan of this Hansel and Gretel retelling because we learned the truth behind the evil witch inside of Hansel and Gretel's story. She's actually dating Hansel, and they are working together along with Gretel to assassinate the Mad King, who is just kind of going around destroying everyone. In fact, in the very next chapter, we're going to find out just how evil this man is, and we're going to see some kind of gruesome things. I am so excited for you guys to be reading Sugarcoated. You can actually grab a copy at sugarcoatedinfo.kmrobinsonbooks.com. And this is available right now. This is a novella, so it's a short story. It's not going to take you forever to read, and this one is going to rip your hearts out. In fact, my fans are livid at me over just how mean I am to some of my characters inside of this story, and I hope that you guys are going to love it as well. I do appreciate each and every one of you joining me live or on the replay for our live book reading of Sugarcoated. I had a lot of fun reading it with you today, and I appreciate your grace as I stumbled over a couple of words, but I am so excited to hear what you have to think about Sugarcoated. Get into my comments, come on over to my website, send me some DMs, some emails, and let me know who's your favorite character. What are you hoping will happen? And do you want a sequel to the story? Because I have been asked. You gotta let me know by reaching out to me. I cannot wait to see if you're a big fan of Annika, Hansel, Gretel, Bauer, some of the other characters inside of this story. So let me know who's your all-time favorite, and do you want a sequel? And please, if I ripped your heart out, let me know. You know I love hearing these things. Make sure you stay tuned because we are going to be back reading more books from my collection. We will get those first chapter or chapters read for you. And I am so excited. Go ahead and let me know which book you want to read next live with me, and I will do my best to get on that for you. I am going to go through all of my books at some point, so I'm just prioritizing what you guys want to hear next. So go ahead and let me know. Thank you so much for joining me, friends, for this live reading of Sugarcoated. I will see you again in the next videos. We're continuing to read our live first chapter or chapters of all of my main stories. I'm KM Robinson. You can come hang out with me at kmrobinsonbooks.com and at KM Robinson Books on all the social media platforms. Until next time, I hope you all have a great day and stay inspired. Bye-bye.